Okay. You know, one of the things I feel bad that we miss out on as technical people and entrepreneurs is you see like skaters get together and all the cool stuff they've done. They're like, yeah, look at this scar. This is the time that I, took a half pipe and totally biffed it and tore my whole leg open. And as much as we all love our success stories, and thank you, Sean, for reading some of those off, I think we all know the things that really make us successful at what we do is the scars. I'd love to hear an introduction sometime that is really what makes us good business people, which is, one time Steve really screwed up a contract with Dublin and he'll never do that again. It's that list of all the you'll never do that agains that really make us successful tech people and entrepreneurs, right? OS2. Never do that again. So I'm here today to talk about the future of interactive marketing, or more fundamentally, where the hell do we go from here? And I got to tell you, I'm dying for Beer Man's sound on that picture right there. That's right. There you go. Well, the good news is where we go from here is actually really easy. All you had to do to be able to tell us where we go from here is predict that slide 10 years ago. So anybody who knows what that slide's going to look like in 10 years, you can tell us where we're going to go. But it makes me think a lot about, the Boy Scouts and be prepared. Great. Okay, I'm ready to be prepared for the future. Be prepared for what? Right? And that's the fundamental question here today is how do we predict what that slide is going to look like in 5 to 10 years? How do we predict how we're going to communicate with people? How do we predict where interactive marketing and more fundamentally interactive communication is going to be in 10 years? Well, the answer is we don't. There's no possible way that anybody in this room can tell me what that slide's going to look like in 10 years. And if you say you can, you're wrong, or you forgot your medication this morning or something like that. But what we can start to do is look at patterns. We can start to look at the way that things are headed. Joe, just before me, talked a little bit about the next generation and how they're different from us. And one of the analogies that makes me think an awful lot about just the explosion of information is you can't be an expert on things anymore, really, right? I mean, 20 years ago, you could be an expert in print. You could know the paper industry. You could know the magazine industry. You could know whatever it is you do, right? And every single time I go to an event like this, each of these events covers something slightly different, and I go, oh, crap, I don't know nearly enough about that, right? And I start to feel completely out of touch because, oh, no, there are too many things I have to be a subject matter expert on. I can't be a subject matter expert on all of them. And I think fundamentally that's because of the way that we think right now. If you think about, have you seen videos of babies that are born inside of a swimming pool, right? I'll tell you what those babies don't do that is exactly what you and I do, which is immediately try to figure out how to touch the bottom, right? Because they have to be grounded. They have to understand, where am I right now? I have to be stable. I have to understand everything and be in control before I can start to move. And that's the difference between people who have come from the illusion that they can be fully in control and people who really are the next generation who adapt to circumstance, who start to look at patterns and adjust themselves to what's going on right now. Okay, so that's a bunch of fluffy bullshit. What the hell do we do, right? So, to start to analyze the patterns, we need to take the core of interactive marketing and ask ourselves what it is. It fundamentally is the ability to interact, right? And what does that mean? Well, to interact means communicating with the hope of a connection. And that's really, if you look at where communications is going, if you look at social, if you look at communities, if you look at walled gardens, if you look at semantical content, all of this fundamentally is, how do I connect deeper? How do I actually make a connection to this person? How do I make sure that they're humming the new Pepsi jingle in the back seat of the car? How do I make sure that they relate to my brand and care who I am and believe that I care who they are? So if we hope for a connection, there are a lot of different ways to communicate. So how do we take some of those methods of communication and start to figure out how to make a connection? How do we make our brand relevant and salient and, most importantly, trustworthy to these people? And the answer is, we click that button and hopefully, there you go. So there are a lot of different ways to communicate. Before we even get to the web, we can start to learn by other methods of communication. We can look behind us and see what got us to where we are and start to analyze where we are and where that's going so that we can start to prepare ourselves to swim in the right direction, so that we can start to know which direction we can head. Because you know what, fundamentally all we can really do is be the Boy Scouts. We can create our little kit with bandages and snake bite venom stuff and a knife and needle and thread. And by the way, stitching yourself isn't as fun as you think. So we can start to build our first aid kit for where it looks like things are headed. And really that's the best we can do. So let's start to look at some of these modes of communication. Let's start with the more traditional ones. We're going to talk about print. We're going to talk about radio. We're going to talk about television. Fundamentally, these have been experiencing a very similar transition, which is a fragmentation for relevance. You look at where these things are going, and as much as we all say, oh, print's going away and magazines are going away, well, you know what? That's a medium. The context, the content that is in those, the information, that's not going away. It's exploding. It's we heard from Joe, the quantity of data that is being produced is far beyond anything ever. What's changing is the way that people consume it. So let's look at how the fragmentation for relevance has started to affect some of these mediums and how we can start to learn from that. So if you look at print, there's books on every topic. At breakfast this morning we were talking about, the smaller bookstores versus Amazon, right? Well, one of the reasons that Amazon can be so successful isn't just price. It fundamentally is the long tail. It's the fact that there's unlimited shelf space, because you know what? If you run a bookstore today, or if you have a magazine rack in your gas station or whatever you have, there's just too much stuff to stock. How many times have you gone to the bookstore? How many times have you gone to 3 bookstores in town and not found the book you were looking for, even though you knew exactly what it was? A ton, right? Because they just don't have enough shelf space. And the reason they don't have enough shelf space is because, you know what? I can find a book on anything, and they can't stock books on everything. They're ebooks now. Everybody is their own publisher. If you've got a cool idea, maybe you've even got a stupid idea. But guess what? There's 10 people out there that love your stupid idea and are more than happy to buy your ebook, and you can all be Facebook friends and talk about how cool it is. There's niche magazines. So I love MMA. I love to watch the UFC and everything. And you know what? I can't walk in anywhere anymore that I don't see 10 different magazines for that topic. And my wife is really into, crochet and cross stitch. And guess what? There's 30 magazines for that. There's this explosion of content. We're seeing these things not only fragment because each one of those is slightly different. Each audience is slightly different. There's a fragmentation so that they can have a relevant message for whoever needs to consume that data. But we're also seeing 3 things that begin to become common across almost all of the mediums, and that is, it has to be on demand. Because for content to be relevant, I decide when it's relevant. Don't tell me when it's relevant. Don't tell me what time I want to watch Lost or what time I want to watch the news. I'll watch it when I want to watch it, right? It is relevant to me when I decide that it's relevant to me. It's online. And fundamentally what that means is I can hit it from everywhere. I don't really care that it's online. What I really care about is that I don't care where it is, right? And that it's cross-device. The ability to consume this on my television, on my computer, on my mobile device, more and more and more. If you look at print, I've got iKindle on my phone, and I have consumed more books on my phone than I ever did. I don't even go to the bookstore anymore because there's no way I'm going to buy a physical book, right? So let's look at radio.